Good to see everybody. I haven't been on a call in a little while. We're really excited to have Eric here today and see so many familiar faces. So thanks for joining. I'll give a little background on Pandion to start off. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization offering free weekly online educational programs and wellness resources to help improve the music industry landscape and offer more attainable and sustainable careers for emerging artists, and specifically keeping everything free and easily accessible so that we can reach people in under-resourced communities and offer our resources regardless of socioeconomic background or identity, which is our big priority. So we have some exciting stuff coming up this summer. This month we have an inaugural teen camp that we're hosting in Los Angeles at Earth Star Creation Center, middle of the month, about 17th through the 19th, for teens from under-resourced communities, specifically from the LAUSD school district, as well as Happy Trails for Kids, which is a nonprofit organization that organizes extracurricular activities for foster care kids. So we're really excited to be hosting that for the first time. We're going to have 15 students per day over 3 days, different students each day. And each day we'll have a focus on a different music industry topic. So the first day is songwriting, second day is band camp, how to start a band and lead an independent band. And then the third day is music production. And we have some incredible mentors leading each day, and we'll share more of that on our social media throughout the month. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested. And yeah, we're just really excited about everything coming up this summer. So keep an eye out and sign up for our newsletter as well if you want to keep up to date with our news and updates. We can drop a little link in the chat to sign up for the newsletter.
Yeah, and right after summer, we're doing our annual Syncathon.
Yeah, in
Spend a lot
August.
on it, so we're excited about that, and we'll keep you posted on that as well.
Yes, definitely. So Eric Campbell, I'll give a little background on you and then you can fill in any information I left out. But Eric is here today, the owner of Sus3 Music, which is a sync agency providing one-stop songs to music supervisors, production companies, and ad agencies. And he's secured placements with brands including Nissan, BMWs, and Zoa Energy Drink. He's created original content for major networks, including Paramount, and also placed numerous songs in TV shows, including Bel Air, The Way Home, The Game, Chicago Fire, Greenleaf, and Step Up High Water. A few of his songs have been recorded and signed by recording artists, including Music Soul Child, Bootsy Collins, Jacqueline Carr, and Rashawn Fagan. And Eric also runs CTRL, or Control Camp, a free sync education community of 8,000 musicians, and is author of Easy Piano for Songwriters and Producers, which constantly ranks on Amazon's charts. So yeah, so many things going on in your world, Eric, and excited to talk to you and hear your secrets to sync and songwriting today.
Thank you, Jordan. It's really, really good to be here. And hey to everybody, good to see you all. I see a lot of people that I know, people from Control Camp, people who've been I've known since way back in our Clubhouse days when we would do talks on that app. So good to see all of you. And thank you, Jordan, Rebecca, Anahi, thank you for putting this space together. If those who know me know, I'm a big advocate of free education. So I appreciate seeing others who are committed to sharing information freely so that creators have an opportunity to just know how to navigate in this space without jumping through a whole lot of hoops to figure it out. It's one of the things that I'm very passionate about. So really glad to be here. And so should I just jump right in?
Yeah,
okay.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Thanks.
Awesome. All right. So talking today, I'm going to talk about something I'm really passionate about, which is sync songwriting secrets. I wear a lot of hats. Sync agent. I am a sync educator. I'm a producer. I'm a mix engineer, at least for myself and the artists that I work with. But songwriting is probably the title that I hold closest to my heart. It's what I've always wanted to do. I've always wanted to write songs that change the world or move the needle or inspire people, make people feel something. And so everything else has kind of been everything else that I've done in my career, from writing, writing songs for Sync, producing, learning to mix, all these things, they really have all been skills that I picked up to help further my songwriting, which has been what I've always been most kind of passionate about. And so I've been working in sync licensing for about approaching 15 years now. And most of that time initially was writing original songs and productions through music libraries for reality shows, for dramas, shows like Chicago Fire and Shameless and things like that. But I also got to do some really custom songwriting. When I worked on the show Greenleaf, I was hired onto the show for the second season as part of the music team. I wrote original songs. I did vocal production with the actors. We wrote songs and remixes for every episode. I wrote about 3 or 4 songs that we used throughout the season and ended up on the season 2 soundtrack. One of them was sung by the main actress, which was Deborah Joy Winans of the Winans family. And then that same song was covered by gospel recording artist Jacqueline Carr. Um, uh, After that, I went to work on a show called Step Up High Water, with Neo, R&B star Neo was one of the main actors. I wrote one of his songs that he sung on the show, or that he recorded for the show, and worked with some animations. I wrote original songs for a TV series, Baby Shark, a couple years back. And so um, I really like talking about just kind of writing for Sync specifically and focusing kind of on the songwriting. A lot of times, if you've heard me talk, kind of about pitching and maybe production and instrumentals and how, how as an artist you may need to be, but focusing on songwriting, I think is really important. So I'm going to dive into that probably for the next 30, 35 minutes, 40 minutes, and then leave a lot of room or some room for questions. If you see me looking up, it's because I have another screen and I made some notes because, as you can probably already tell, I can get a little talkative. So I made some notes to try to keep me on point. All right, so 6 songwriting secrets. The first thing that, I want to contrast kind of like where Sync was 10, 15 years ago and kind of where it is now from a songwriting perspective. There was a time where a lot of artists thought about music for TV or film and thought of it as, this is where I can send my throwaway music. Here's the songs that have been sitting on my hard drive, things that I haven't been able to land other places, songs that I didn't release or didn't want to release. Maybe I can get kind of sync placements for them. And that probably worked, at some point in time. I do not think that that's how the market is today for a number of reasons. One, there's so much, just as you're saying, from this organization, from our organization, from a lot of people out there, there's so much more information about sync that there's a lot more people in the space. And the information about how to work in this space is a lot more easily accessible, which is a good thing. But that also means that supervisors are at a place where they have lots and lots of options, more than they've ever had before. So that forces the bar higher. And I think sync agents, music libraries, they're at a place now where they can afford to be more picky. They can afford to be more choosy. So they are looking for top quality songs the same way labels have always been looking for top quality songs, the same way publishers have always been looking for top quality songs. I feel like um, the bar for sync has probably raised to be equal to the rest of the industry. And so as with the rest of the industry, the most important thing for any piece of music that's been put out there, if it has lyrics on it, is the song. You know, you got the artist, you have the production, you have live performance, you have all these things, but none of that means anything if you don't have a song that really hits people in the heart. Especially here when you're talking about, songs for media, film, television, ads, which are all emotional mediums. And I'll talk a little more about that. So when we talk about some of the differences between um, writing songs for sync, for media, which TV, film, advertisements, video games, etc., versus writing songs for what an artist release, or if you're pitching songs to other artists. If you're writing songs for yourself, and a lot of times you're going to be trying to tell a story, but you may be telling a very literal story, you may be telling a very personal story, you may be telling something so that your fans understand you. Your lyrics might be focused more on yourself for them to, relate to. For sync, we are not as focused on literal stories. We're not as focused on literal details. The reason being is in almost every case, there's already a story being told on screen. So if you're watching television, they're telling a story. If you're writing a song for yourself, if it's a breakup song, you might talk about, that your partner broke up with you outside and it was raining and it was dark clouds, and they broke up with you on the doorstep of your house, and you put all these details in there. For TV, many of those details are already on the screen. And so if you're putting those details in your song, it limits the application that can happen it limits what screen stories it can fit with. Because if you're talking about, you broke up with me in the rain, then you're limiting yourself potentially to only shows or scenes where it's actually raining or dark or gloomy. And in a lot of those cases, supervisors may not want that song because it might be too on the nose. It might be too exact to what's already, or redundant to what's already being told on screen. So it's really important for the way we tell stories, we tend to focus more on emotional writing. We tend to focus on on universal lyrics. And if you get a lot of briefs, you'll hear that term a lot. We're looking for songs with universal lyrics. And what that means is we want songs that can apply to the broadest number of people. So not necessarily niche topics, but we want things that, if we're showing an ad that's going to play across the entire country and your music's to be featured in the ad, then we want the majority of people in the country to get what's being talked about. We don't want it to feel like it's only meant for a small, narrow community. So that's what universal lyrics means. And then as you're writing universally, there's also an art to writing emotionally. So if you don't have the room to put in a lot of literal details on screen, describing the day and the time and who's around and all the people involved, what you're left with is the feelings of that moment, right? And so in that same breakup, I may not want to talk about that it's cloudy outside, but I have lots of feelings that I can talk about. I can talk about how I am left, brokenhearted, wondering if I did something wrong or what went wrong. I can talk about how I have no energy to do anything, go anywhere, involve myself in any activity, because all I want to do is sit here and swim in my feelings. Like, there's so many things emotionally I can talk about without literal details. And so getting in practice of writing songs and really digging deep into yourself vulnerably to really get into the emotions of a moment leads to powerful songs. All right, so let me talk about kind of the songwriting craft for a moment. So if you look at a song and look at what the parts of a song are, you got your lyrics, you have your melody, probably have like your rhythm, your groove, and you may have other things like, the production and things that go around it. But I'd say the lyrics, melody, and the rhythm and the groove, lyrics, melody, rhythm are like your main three components. So for you guys, what would you all say out of those three, lyrics, melody, rhythm, what would you say is the most important, if anything? You can put that in the chat or your thoughts in the chat. If anything is more important than the others between lyrics, melody, and rhythm, what's your thoughts on that? I see lyrics, I see rhythm and groove, I see a number of people say melody, equally important. It's a tough question. Lyrics, melody, rhythm. Okay, we get a little of everything. Somebody said instrumentals. And good. Carrie said what I was going to say, which is this phrase that you hear a lot. And I actually heard Ryan Tedder say this phrase too, that melody is king. And this is what I believe too. I believe that out of all those things, they're all important. And somebody mentioned instrumentals, and yes, especially if you're doing pop or hip hop, if I'm a writer, I'm going to be picking out a track before I even start writing anything. I usually don't write without a track. So yes, tracks are very important in certain genres, not if necessarily in the singer-songwriter space or, in folk or other things. But throughout all those things, what's consistent is melody. And I think the proof of that, if you can remember the last time you tried to remind your best friend or your partner or family member about the song that you couldn't remember, that's on the tip of your tongue, what do? You scat it, you try to hum the melody, you don't think about the words or the lyrics and say, hey, do you know that song that said this? You go right to the melody because that's what people remember. That's what sticks in our heads. That's like that's what attracts us. You might appreciate the words and the words might enhance the power, but it's that melody of the song that's actually drawing you in the first place. And that's what your mind mentally is mostly remembering. So that phrase, melody is king, a lot of songwriters will use that to remind themselves that, of all the things I do here, I have to make sure that this melody works. One songwriter gave me advice that if you can't hum your song and make a person fall in love with it, then your song isn't strong enough. If you have to go to the words and the concept and everything else, if just humming it or scatting it doesn't make someone fall in love with that or appreciate it, then you might have to go back, to the drawing board. So that's one thing to keep in mind. All those, I really focus on melody when I'm writing. The other thing is, let's talk about theme selection, specifically for sync. Like, what are we talk about? If you follow me, you may have heard this before. Again, let's go back to the chat. Out of all the concepts, I'm not talking about sync, I'm talking about songwriting in general. Out of all the songwriting themes that we could talk about, what's the number one theme that we tend to go to as songwriters? Right, that was easy. Everybody's got it. Yep. Love, relationships, heartbreak, all of that. That's what we mostly talk about. Love, relationships. I'd say 90%, that might be selling it short, of songs that are out there are all love-based. The interesting thing is that in sync licensing, by my experience, it's probably the opposite. Love is probably the least requested brief. I get numerous briefs every day sent to me, and I probably have gotten one in the past year asking for a song about romantic love. I've gotten a lot of briefs asking about platonic love, but I've gotten I can only remember one right now where they specifically asked for a romance theme. Why is that? If it's the most popular theme in the world of songwriters, why is it the least popular request in sync? Simple answer is because they can find as much of it as they want without going to the independent artist community. these songs are everywhere. Publishers have them, major labels have them, indie labels have them. They're all over the place. And so by the time a brief gets to me, I'm a smaller boutique agency. By the time it gets to you, by the time it shows up on Songtrader or Taxi or any other service you might use to find briefs, by the time it gets there, if you see a brief on any of those services or any of the mailing lists that you're on, it means that that supervisor has been unable to find that style, song, theme, whatever. Where our superpower is being able to give them what they're unable to find. And so you're not going to necessarily see those briefs for love and romance, and it's very hard to get those songs placed because there's just so many of them out there. We get in by giving them what they don't have. And so when you're thinking about themes, the question is, what else can we talk about besides love that works kind of in a film context or in a sync context? And maybe that also is relevant to me as a writer or me as an artist and what my fans might want to also hear from me. So actually, I'm going to scroll over. I have a ebook I just put together that's part of a course that we're rolling out. And this is 100 ad-friendly songwriting themes for sync placements. So I just want to go through some of this to show you how many themes there are that have nothing to do with love, how many things you can actually write about. So you've got adventure, which are songs that evoke a sense of exploration. You've got ambition, songs about goal setting and striving for success. Belonging, songs that evoke a sense of community and inclusion. Celebration, songs that are perfect for parties and festive occasions. Confidence, songs that boost self-esteem and self-assuredness. Discovery, songs that evoke the thrill of finding something new. Diversity, songs that celebrate different, encourage venture the unknown. Here's a big one: family, songs that emphasize the importance of family bonds. Anyway, there's 100 of these. This provides for things that work outside of love. We just have to kind of step out of the love relationship comfort zone, especially because that's the thing that we're most emotionally drawn to, because that's what many of us who are involved in relationships or breakup or whatever, that's what the emotions that we want to express. So taking the time to really get into our own emotions around some of these other topics, because we do have emotions around them. They're just not always as strong or present or prevalent. But you'll find that there's tons of songwriting ideas for those. So that's theme selection. And then also with theme selection, I also want to talk about the importance of, one, a good song title, and two, finding the big idea, right? Song titles, if you got your theme, they need a good title. I'm going to just say quickly, I take titles really seriously, and not as poetry or not as a way to show my poetical skill. For me, titles are about discovery, right? So a little background on how kind of sync agents, music libraries, other people work. When we're looking for songs, we get a brief, we might go to this, whatever our catalog search thing is. If our music is on disco, if it's on source audio, if it's in some private system, we're going to enter in all the metadata for that song. So we might say, I need a hip hop song that's between 95 and 105 beats per minute. I need it to be in a major key. I need these particular themes. I need excitement, celebration, and determination. Let me see what's on my catalog. I enter all that search and 200 results come up. And so within that 200 results, the first thing I'm seeing, I'm looking at the artwork for the song and I'm looking at the title for the song, right? It is literally impossible for me to equally listen to all 200 songs and say which of these 200 are the best here. So I already did one level of filtering with all the metadata. Now I do another level of filtering. For me, that's artwork and song title. Song title says, is this going to say kind of what I'm looking for? So because I know that as an agent, because I've known that from working with publishers, as a writer, I'm very conscientious of my titles. I want you to know what this song is about. If this song is a song of perseverance and overcoming obstacles, then I'm not going to get too poetic. My title might be something like I Can't Be Stopped, Undefeated, Overcomer. When you see this, you're going to know that, that might fit right in without even hearing the lyrics, just the title alone, that might fit in this spot. That might fit in this commercial. So title is super important. I spend a lot of time making sure that that my title works with the song and is also discoverable. And lastly, with that, to go to the power of the big idea, there is a tendency in sync because even everything I've talked to right now has been very analytical, this analytical side of sync, and not so much on the creative side. So there's this tendency to say that, oh, we can kind of stay shallow. Let's just talk about I'm the best. Let's talk about, I'm being on top, feeling good, and staying at this very, very shallow level. While I do all these analytical things, I try to write deeply vulnerable songs that are going to move people, whether they're in sync or not. If I release this song, if you never see in the ad, but you hear it, I want you to love this song, and I want you to feel like it's talking to you. And so that goes to kind of really finding these big ideas. I use this term. There's a book by an author named David Lynch called Catching the Big Fish. I really recommend it. It's a short, easy read, but it talks about, if you want little fish, you fish in the shallow water. If you want big fish, you got to fish in the deep water. And so same thing for your ideas. If you want, simple songs, simple ideas, then you just take the first thing that comes off your head and you write about it. But if you want those deep songs that somebody might come to you and be like, how did you know I was feeling that? How did you know I was thinking that way? If you want those ideas, then you got to spend time with yourself. You got to spend time looking really deeply inward. And that is a practice and a habit that I think all the great songwriters do. So a lot of times for ideas, I don't wait till I'm in a writing session, to think about what's a great idea for this session or for this track. There's so many other things I'll think about there. I got a track, I got to come up with a melody. I'm trying to figure out an arrangement. But when it comes to ideas, every time I walk into a session, I have got a list of deeply vulnerable, personal, emotionally intense ideas that I can pull from, because I am looking for these all the time. I journal in the morning. I might, whenever the inspiration hits me, if I'm driving down the road and something comes up, I pull up my phone, I got my voice memo, I got lists. I have hundreds of ideas in voice memos. I've got hundreds of ideas in a Notion list and my Apple reminders list. Like, I've got them in so many places. I never really struggle with writer's block or coming up with a lack of an idea, because it's not about coming up with them, it's about capturing them. When the inspiration hits you, do you have a mechanism for capturing it, logging it down, and making sure that you don't forget it? So 90% of the work, not 90%, a big portion of the work that I do for writing a song is not done when I'm in the session. It's done outside, just being available when inspiration hits me so that I can capture it. And then when I'm in the session, I can go back to that. All right, so dropped a lot of analytical and craft things. So the last couple of things we'll talk about, let's talk about the actual songwriting process. This is my process that I've used, that I really stand on. You can talk to 10 songwriters, you might come up with 10 different processes, but I'll share with you what works with me. Many of the things that I write will be writing to a track, but this process also works if you are a singer-songwriter and you're writing with a guitar or a piano and chords. For me, I usually will start with a track first, and tracks are very important. So I will only write to tracks that really, really move me. You can't write a high bar song to a mediocre track. So the track has to be I'm really critical about the tracks that I write to. And then what I'll do, because going back to melody is king, what I said earlier, before I come up with a concept, before I come up with a theme, before I write the first line, I will do a melodic scat over that track. The melodic scat is how I get the melody and my arrangement. So what that means is, if you've ever seen like Ryan Tedder or Michael Jackson, they all use the similar process where they'll just put the track on and kind of start singing a melody with gibberish words just to try to get a rhythm, to get an energy, to get a vibe going. That vibe, that energy, that's like 90% of the song. Filling in the words and making it make sense is more like piecing a puzzle together. But that initial melody for me is everything. So I'll do that melody and I'll stay there. I might take a track and I might do 10 different melodic scats. You know, I'll start the track and play from the beginning all the way through 3 minutes, be on my microphone in my DAW and record a whole pass with a melody and just kind of freestyle melodies that come and make sense. And if I like what I got, I'll go back to the beginning and do another one. I'll do that 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 times. And then as I'm listening to those, I can be picky about what's the strongest. What feels like it could be a chorus section? What feels like it might be a bridge section? What feels like, and then I'm kind of, putting the puzzle together. I might take these 4 bars from the 10th take and bring it to, as I say, that's the intro, and these 4 bars from the 3rd take, maybe that's the verse, and I'm switching things around until I get something from start to finish that I just love without any real lyrics or real words. When I can hear that scat that I'm in love with, that I feel like, man, I could almost just release this scat. There is an artist, it's not Ryan Tedder, there's another Ryan, I can't think of his last name, but there's another artist who actually released one of his scats called Gibberish. And it's a great song. Like, it's actually great. And it's just a scat. Put it out there, put it on his album, released it. I cannot think of his name right now, but you would know it if I saw it, if I can think of it. Anyway, if you looked up Gibberish on Spotify, you probably find there can't be too many songs with that name. So first thing is Ryan Leslie. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, Ryan Leslie. So melodic scat comes first, and then I go back and I go into like theme and title. Even before I get to a chorus, I want to know, okay, what am I talking about? And my scat kind of already usually has an energy to it. It may have words that I threw out in the freestyle that might make some sense. So what I normally do is, because I'm capturing ideas all the time, as I'm listening to the track, I am going through my iPhone lists, I'm going through my Notion lists of titles and concepts and trying to match something that I already knew, like this is a strong title and theme, but what actually fits to this track and the track energy. And that may take a little time, but usually, because I spent so much time ideating around themes and title, I have so many strong concepts, it's not hard to find something that will really work with that track. So melodic scat, then a theme and a title. And then for me, I'm jumping from that to the chorus. Right? For me, the chorus is the hook. That's the most important part of the song. That might be the only part that gets placed. It might be the only part that somebody really listens to. Some people listen and they fast forward just to that section. So I'm making sure that section, before I write the song, before I determine what the storyline is, I'm making sure that section is done. So melodic scat, theme, title, chorus, and then from there I back up and I fill in verses. The thing about the melodic scat is it already gave me an arrangement usually. So I know if I have an intro, I know if my verse has a pre or not, because I scattered all the way and kind of built it without any, with the nonsense words. So now I'm just filling in the story and filling in with those melody lines and trying to make that melody make sense with the words and the stories that I'm telling. What's really important, where am I time-wise? All right, I have 5 more minutes. What's really important is when I do that first pass, I move pretty quickly. I do not I try to hold back from editing myself. Well, I've seen a lot of songwriters get stuck because when the idea comes out, they question it. They say, "Oh, is that the best word? Uh, could I have found a better phrase than that?" And they start editing too soon. And so the song hasn't been finished. The song, it takes sometimes a long time for a song to get finished because some songwriters edit too soon. I get all my ideas out. They may sound crazy, they may sound whatever, but I get them out and I try to get a great idea from start to finish and within my first pass without questioning too much. So now I've got a whole song. I've got an intro, I've got verses, I've got a chorus, I've got, if it has a bridge, which most songs don't now, but if it has an outro section, whatever, I get that all the way through. Then I shift into what I call edit mode. Now that I've got a whole song, it's the same way authors write books. They write the book and then they edit the book. They don't edit while they write their novel. And the same way with this, I think for me works on a song. I write the song and then I edit the song. And I put as much or more time editing the song than I put writing the song. Because now I want to say, what do I need to do to make this great? There are songwriters out there who would say that, you know what, I just go with the first idea because I find that the first idea is the best. Some of you might say that, so people who believe that, and that's great. There are major songwriters, major artists who have said that, like, hey, if this is what the universe has said to me, if this is the inspiration that comes, I just kind of go with that and I put that out there. That has not been my experience. That has not been what's worked for me personally. I get really, really strong ideas, but I feel like when I go back and I get into my editing, I end up with a better chorus. I have written the same song 4 times, different choruses, different concepts, different verses, and said, you know what, this 4th take or this 3rd take song is actually better and stronger than the first concept. So I don't take what comes first. I do pay attention to the inspiration, but I also not afraid to edit, not afraid to see if it can be stronger. So one of the things that I do, I have a checklist. This is also part of the songwriting course that we're putting out. I have a whole checklist I do called edit mode checklist. And I go through, it's about probably 10 to 12 things on there. All right. First thing I say, okay, can my chorus be stronger? It's the most important part of the song. Is this really as strong and catchy? If somebody just heard this by itself, they didn't hear the intro, they didn't hear any lead up, if they didn't hear the storyline, if I just played this section, would they love it? And if my answer to myself is not yes, then I'll say, let me try if I can come up with a stronger hook. Let me see if there's something stronger there. First thing I do, can my chorus be stronger? Next thing I do is I ask myself, is the first line of my song attention grabbing? And I do that because somebody told me once, a songwriting mentor, or maybe it was a book I read. I'm not sure where I got this from. But I heard it said that the job of the first line of a song is to get the audience to want to know what the second line of the song is, right? So the first line has to be so attention grabbing that they want to hear what comes next. That you don't want to lose them. And so I really put some time and energy into that very first line. When you hear this, are you going to want to keep going, or are you going to be tempted to keep scrolling? So first line has to be attention grabbing. Next thing I check on cliches in my writing. Cliches are so easy to do because they come right to mind, and I try to avoid them when I'm doing my first pass, but they slip in there. So I really do go back and check. Did I put any, and cliches being commonly said phrases that tend to get overworn and they lose their emotional impact. And songwriting is all about emotion. So it's hard if you use things that may have sounded fresh and original when they first came out, but now they have no power at all, then you're taking something that could give emotional impact and replacing it with something that's bland. So I try to go and look for cliches and then remove them and say, what can I write that's more original here or more impactful, more emotionally impactful? The next thing I look at is, do my lyrics sound natural? meaning are they conversational? You know, I've taken the cliches out and I've tried to put in original things, but even with my originality, is it still conversational? If I try to read these lyrics without any melody, would they still make sense, like a natural conversation? I find that songs translate, but there are poetic songs out there, but I find that songs translate better when they're conversational. I think even Joni Mitchell songs, you know, it's hugely poetic. You can read them and they sound like somebody's talking to you. It doesn't sound like, you know, just some abstract poetical verse. The other thing is a little more math analytical, but I do try to make sure that my melodic lines are symmetrical, meaning, you know, is my first and second line, are they following kind of the same melody and rhythm? And then my third and fourth line following the same melody and rhythm? Or maybe it's my first and third line and second and fourth. I do try to make sure there's some, you know, this melody has to balance with repetition in order for it to be memorable for the listener. And so I try to make sure that that symmetry is in there. I agree with something Ryan Tedder said, which is that there was a time where your first verse and your second verse had to kind of match the pattern of the first verse. Things have kind of evolved now, and the second verses have started kind of taking their own little direction. His theory is this is due to like hip hop's influence of always bringing on feature artists, and so we've gotten used to having a totally different meter and rhythm in the verses. And I do that when I write. My second verses might be inspired by my first verse, but it could be a different melody, it could be a different rhythm. The symmetry within the verses not necessarily has to be across the verses anymore, at least in pop and hip hop, you know, in those genres. Another cool thing I check is there sufficient variety in my melodic starts? What I mean by that is if I have my first and second line maybe starting on the downbeat, then my third line I want to make sure is not starting on the downbeat. I might have, hopefully that line is starting on the pickup, maybe the pickup to the downbeat or starting after the beat. These are things that you might not be thinking when you're doing your initial scat and initial pass, but when you go back into edit, you might say, wow, all my things are like all right here on the downbeat, or they're all on the pickup. And 2, 3, 4 times of that starts to get too repetitive and it starts to sound uninteresting. So I really do make sure that I mix up where my line starts. Some on the downbeat, some before the beat, some after the beat. It keeps it original and fresh. 2 more. This is important. Once I put lyrics to this, does my song with the lyrics sound as good as the original melodic scat that I do? I often have trouble with this because the scat is so good, and then when I put words to it, it loses a little bit of the swag. It loses a little bit of the, you know, the flavor of it. And I really have to look at, and this is something I think songwriters should always check out. I have to find a balance between what makes literal sense versus what sounds good. Because the melodic scat sounds good, and then the written song makes literal sense, and I might have to do a balance between the two. I think a great example is Michael Jackson, who has many nonsensical words in his songs because they sound good, but they make no sense at all. And so finding that balance, I think I use this time to really make sure I have that. Because I want the final product, melody is king, it has to sound good. Making sense to me is not as important as sounding good, but if I can do both, then I want to do both. And then the last thing I check, are there any filler lines in the lyrics? I got this from Jason Blum, who's a songwriter for Britney Spears and a bunch of people. I look at all my lines, and I want every line to be adding emotional impact to the song. And if there's a line there and it's not adding to the emotional power, to the emotional depth, then I got to see about if it's repeating something that was already said, or if it's a filler and not really adding anything, then I'm going to look at what can I replace this with, because this song is all about emotion. Sync is all about emotion. Getting something on screen is all about emotion. The way these things land is having a song that's as emotionally powerful as possible. So I can't afford to waste any lines. Every line has to contribute to the emotional intensity of the song. So those are the things on my checklist of what I go through when I'm editing the song. And by the time I've done that, maybe the first pass took me an hour and the edit mode took me 3 hours. Maybe the first pass took me a day and the edit mode took me a week. I put a lot of time into making sure that what I end up with is as strong as possible. Sometimes I get to a point where I got to go back to scratch. I got to start, maybe do another melodic scat and start it over. But usually 9 times out of 10, if I go through that process, that is what works for me. Okay, so covered a lot. I talked fast, but I think we're doing okay on time. I'm trying to leave a little bit of time for questions, but I just to remind you what we covered. We looked at the sync songwriting basics, which is kind of the difference between writing for sync versus writing for artists. What universal lyrics means, what it means to write songs emotionally and not literally. We talked about the parts of a song, which are lyrics, melody, and rhythm, and how melody is the most important part, in my opinion, and that's key. We talked about not writing love songs and how there are hundreds of themes outside of love that you can master writing, especially for sync. The power of a good song title and how titles are for discovery, not for poetry. And the power of a big idea and how ideas have to be captured. You don't come up with them as you're writing the song. You capture them when the inspiration hits. And then I talked about my songwriting process, doing a first pass with the melodic scat and then shifting into edit mode. So I did okay for time. I went a little over what I wanted to do, but how are we for questions, Jordan?
That was great. Thank you so much for being so specific too. Like so many tips people can utilize in their songwriting now.
Thank you.
You're a wonderful speaker and teacher.
I also think that like you went into, not just in the songwriting, but for those producers out there, the songwriting mixed with production ideas as you go along were really great as well. Thank you for
Thank
that.
you. Thank you so much. If we have time for questions, I'd love to take those. I do want to say this is all this content comes from a songwriting course that we'll be rolling out in the next month and if you're already in Control Camp, if not before I end, I'll give you all my links. You can follow us so you'll know that when it drops. But we'll go into this. We go into more on production considerations and vocal arrangements and mixing and mastering considerations from a songwriting perspective. And so I really tried to make this as jam-packed as possible.
Yes,
Amazing.
for those of you, and I just put it in the chat how to find that for
Thank
if you want
you.
to sign up for camp. Yes, and we can share anything else you want us to share for you, Eric. As we're all fans now, we're all gonna we're all gonna jump in.
Awesome. Well, yeah, I appreciate this. And are there questions? I mean, I didn't even look at the chat,
Yeah,
but
if you
are
want
there any
to
questions?
raise your hand and come on the screen, or you can just pop them in the chat. Feel free. If you've got any questions the last few minutes. Oh, got one question here. Julianne, can you talk
Okay.
about your current search for producers or trailer style tracks?
Oh, so that is a brief that we have on the Control Camp site. So if you're in Control Camp, I post briefs of things that either we're looking for as Sus3 music or that sometimes we partner with other agencies or libraries and they ask our community, they ask us to post a brief to the community. But we have a brief now where we have an in-house production team that kind of focuses on trailerized music, really like hybrid trailerizations. So like hip hop influenced trailer tracks or trailerized hip hop tracks, trailerized pop tracks, trailerized rock, kind of like, we do a lot of things with the intersection of genres, but with cinematic impact. And so I do have a brief where I'm looking for some new producers to add to the team to work on trailerized projects. And so all of our briefs are on the site. We probably have like 3 or 4 listed right now for different genres, and anybody can go there and kind of look at all the requirements on there.
Awesome. Any other questions?
Oh, somebody said, do you ever work on a song for a while and then just decide it's not going to work? Great question, Brian. Um, yes, I try to make a point of finishing everything because I know that I've had many times where I second guess something that I wrote, or just by the time I got to the end of it, I'm like, oh, I'm just not really feeling where this is anymore. And I've had many things where I've gotten to that place and then I've ignored the song, and a year later come back and I'm like, oh my God, that's pretty awesome. What was I thinking? Like, just in the moment, the, my own insecurity or just being tired or looking at the song can make me think that something is not worth finishing. And so now I believe in finishing everything. I don't care what it, if I start it, I'm going to finish it. I may not pitch it right away, but I'm going to finish it. And maybe I need to step away from it for a month, but I'd rather finish it and then step away from it and come back. And then maybe when I come back in 30 days or whatever, I might be like, oh, it's just that the chorus is good, but it's just that that verse wasn't working. So let me just work. Like, I'll have more clarity when I step away from it. So sometimes instead of stopping, I think we just need to step away. And it's hard sometimes when you're working with briefs because you don't always have that time. But if you do have the time to give yourself time to step away and come back, I do find that beneficial for me.
Great. Looks like there's another question here. I just lost it.
The one about emotion is king? Tony's comment, or is another? Oh, there's a couple.
That might have been.
Yeah, there's a
a
couple. Urel
too.
has one and Tony has one. So Tony says, bland songwriting or melody amassed by a super emotional singer, and the voice sells the song. Maybe emotions king. That's a good point, Tony. I do think that I would flip that a different way because I've written very emotionally strong songs that also needed a very emotional performance to deliver it. And I've had songs demoed by different singers. I've had songs that I've demoed myself. I'm a decent singer. I'm not an awesome singer. So I have songs that I've demoed, and then I bring on another more powerful singer to do it. And I've seen the reactions from submissions and other places when the more powerful singer is on there. I think, in my opinion, an emotionally powerful singer with an emotionally powerful song, nothing can match that. And yes, an emotionally powerful singer can carry a bland emotional song, and a bland performance singer can get away with an emotionally powerful song. But when you have the two of those together, that's everything. And Uriel said, do you have tips for co-writing with others on sync tracks? Common practices or just general advice? So I probably could do a whole session on just co-writing. But I think, well, here's what I'll say quickly. When I go into a co-writing session, I never go into a co-writing session without first coming with a whole slate of ideas. I feel like so I may have if especially if I have access to a track beforehand, I'm gonna come, I may have tracks, I'm gonna have chorus ideas or song concepts because and then usually, the co-writers, especially if I do it like in Nashville or LA or somewhere where people are, really into co-writing, I know they're going to come with ideas. And so what we're really doing at that time is then filtering through the ideas and seeing maybe what the artist really wants to focus on or what's the strongest in there, and not just sitting in a room spinning, twiddling our thumbs trying to figure out what are we going to talk about today. So for me, there's so many things to say about co-writing, but for that, I think is the best is coming into the session with some ideas already before you get there.
Great. We have a couple more questions, but I think, Eric, you are doing our AMA Ask Me Anything on Facebook, correct?
Am I?
Sorry, might have looked at the wrong thing, but we do a little Ask Me Anything on Facebook. We can send you any follow-up questions people have.
Oh, cool, cool.
answer after the fact. Yeah.
That's great.
We have it open till Friday, so if anyone wants to do that and has any lingering questions that come up in the next day or two, you can just pop them in that thread on Facebook. And then just remember, if you haven't signed up for the Creators Circle yet, you can go and request access to the group. It's a private group on Facebook, and make sure you answer all the regulations and questions that pop up that they will automatically ask you when you try to sign up for the page. Otherwise, you won't gain access. So, yeah, so we can do that over the next couple days and stay in touch. Again, Eric, this is amazing. So much incredible information.
Thank you so much. I had a blast. I'm putting my Instagram in the chat as well. You can always, anybody can follow me there at Eric Makes Music. I do a lot of content on Instagram. And
Amazing.
So that and
Great.
controlcamp.com are the two places to connect with me.
Yeah, everybody make sure you save the link or check out Eric's his website for the Control Camp if you want to join. Cool. Thank you again.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
This
you,
was fun.